you do everything alone? There's a reason, and it's not what you think. In the next few minutes, you'll understand why your brain chose this and why you're not broken for it. Before we start, think of the last time someone offered help and you said, "No, I've got it." Hold on to that moment. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why you said it. You tell yourself you'll just do it yourself. It's faster that way. You've already mapped it out in your head. The steps, the timing, the small decisions nobody else would notice. Asking someone would mean explaining. Explaining would mean waiting. And waiting usually means doing it alone anyway, just later. So you skip the middle part. You carry the grocery bags in one trip. You assemble the furniture at midnight. You move apartments without telling anyone you're moving. From the outside, it looks like competence. From the inside, it feels like the only thing that's ever really worked. But here's what most people miss. This isn't independence. Not really. Independence is chosen. This was built. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to hear something before we go any further. You're not cold. You're not broken. You're not emotionally unavailable or avoidant or whatever word someone once used to describe you. Your brain learned something a long time ago and it's been quietly protecting you ever since. That's not a flaw. That's a nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. To understand why doing everything alone feels easier, genuinely easier, not just pretend easier, we have to go back to the moments that taught you depending on people costs more than it gives. It usually starts small. You asked someone for help and they forgot. You opened up about something difficult and watched their face change. You needed a ride, a favor, a minute of their time, and somehow you walked away feeling like you owed them something. Maybe it happened once. Maybe it happened for years. Either way, your brain was taking notes. Psychologists sometimes call this learned self-reliance, a pattern that forms when depending on others consistently leads to disappointment, inconsistency, or emotional cost. Your mind ran the math. Doing it alone felt heavy. Asking for help felt heavier, so you picked the lighter weight. You've been carrying it ever since. Think about the way this shows up in stories. The character who never calls for backup, who handles everything quietly, who only breaks when nobody's watching. We're taught to admire that. But admiration is a strange thing to build an identity on. What looks like strength on screen is often just someone who learned early that no one was coming. And when no one comes enough times, you stop checking the door. There's another layer underneath this one. Asking for help requires you to tolerate something most people don't talk about, the in-between moment, the pause between asking and receiving, that moment where you don't know if they'll say yes, if they'll do it right, if they'll make you feel small for needing it in the first place. For some people, that pause is neutral. For you, it's loud. Your nervous system would rather skip it entirely. Doing it yourself removes the pause. There's no waiting, no wondering, no vulnerability sitting in the air. Control replaces uncertainty. And control, for a brain that's been let down before, feels a lot like safety. There's also the quiet weight of being seen as a burden. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your needs were inconvenient. Maybe a parent sighed when you asked for something. Maybe a friend made a joke that wasn't really a joke. Maybe you just noticed that the people who needed less were the people who got loved more. So you shrank your asks. You handled things. You became the person everyone could rely on, because needing nothing was the safest way to stay wanted. It's sometimes called internalized self-sufficiency, when someone learns, silently, that love is easier to keep when you don't ask for much. You grew up. The lesson didn't. And then there's the part where doing things yourself actually works. That's the complicated truth nobody likes to say out loud. You've gotten good at this. You know how to problem solve, how to push through, how to finish what you start without anyone's input. Every time you do it alone and it works, your brain files it as evidence. See? We didn't need them. We were right. The pattern keeps reinforcing itself, not because you're avoiding people, but because you've become genuinely capable in the absence of them. But here's the part nobody tells you. Doing everything alone isn't actually about not needing people. It's about not trusting the arrival. You've imagined help before. You've pictured someone showing up, understanding without explanation, making it lighter. You want that. You've always wanted that. The issue isn't desire. The issue is that wanting it and believing it's possible are two different nervous system states, and your body has only ever fully trusted one of them. This is where it gets interesting, because the behavior changes shape as you get older. In your early 20s, doing everything alone felt like proof.
proof you were mature, capable, ahead of everyone else. In your late 20s and 30s, it starts feeling different, quieter, heavier in a way you
Can't quite name. You notice the silence after you finish things. You notice that no one knew how hard it was. You notice yourself pulling back from people who actually want to help, not because you don't want the help, but because receiving it feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that don't fit. The behavior hasn't gone anywhere. It's just started costing you something it didn't cost before. And still, your brain keeps choosing it. Because underneath everything, this pattern does something important. It regulates you. When the world feels unpredictable, doing things yourself becomes a kind of anchor. You know your own pace. You know your own standards. You know that if you're the one doing it, nothing will surprise you. For a nervous system that learned early to brace for disappointment, self-reliance isn't isolation. It's a familiar room. A place where the rules don't change. A blanket you've been wrapped in so long you forgot it was there. That's the part that makes this so hard to unlearn. Not because unlearning is impossible, but because what you built actually worked. It kept you functioning. It kept you moving. It kept you from breaking in moments where breaking wasn't allowed. The independence you carry isn't a wall, it's a shelter. And shelters are built for good reasons. So if you find it easier to do everything alone, you don't need to apologize for that. You don't need to explain it to the people who don't get it. You don't need to force yourself into closeness you don't feel yet. What you're doing makes sense. It made sense to the version of you who needed it. And the fact that it still lingers doesn't mean you're closed off. It means you survived something that taught you to be careful, and careful became the shape of who you are. There's nothing wrong with the person who learned to carry their own weight. There's only someone who learned early and carried honestly and is still here, quietly doing the next thing the way they've always done it, alone for now. And that's its own kind of strength, one you never had to prove to anyone, one that was always, quietly,